I think a lot of guys, they get pigeonholed into certain things, and they get kind of stereotyped into, this is what you have to do, this is what you're supposed to do. And some of them might want to follow those particular paths. But I'll put it to you very easily. Like having three sons and two older sons, we had one rule in our house. And well, we had a lot of rules in our house, but one rule focused around them was like, you guys can't be me. You have to be you. And what that means is I will expose you to everything. I will give you opportunities to climb mountains, to fall down ravines. I will give you plenty of opportunities, but you guys can't be me because what I am is completely different than you. What I think that did for them was relieve a whole different level of pressure where they don't have to be like dad. And I think a lot of young men, they're faced with that. And it might not be dad per se, but it might be somebody that they view as their hero or that they idolize. They want to be like that person. And the reality is they will never be that person.
Welcome to the Next Level Guy Show podcast. I'm Ian, and this is where men rebuild discipline, confidence, and take control of their lives. No hype, no excuses, just real conversations and practical tools. Let's get into today's episode. What happens when a man stops trusting himself? Donny isn't on the Next Level Guy Show because he teaches survival. He's here because he teaches something far more valuable: self-reliance. His journey from Marines through a life-changing heart attack to rebuilding himself in the wilderness isn't really just about learning to survive. It's about earning the kind of confidence that only comes from being genuinely capable. But what does happen when a man stops trusting himself? Not because he's weak, but because he spent years outsourcing every challenge, every problem, and every discomfort to someone else. Today's guest, Donny, has spent his life doing the opposite. A former Marine, primitive skills expert, survival instructor, and father, Donny has spent his entire life exploring one simple idea: the more capable you become, the more you trust yourself. This conversation isn't about making fire or living in caves. It's about why capability creates confidence, why resilience can't be downloaded, and why so many men feel like something is missing without ever knowing what that something is. If you've ever felt like something is missing but couldn't explain it, this is a conversation that might help you find the words you need. And now, let's get to the interview. No, because that's something I loved about your stuff is like you get back to the nitty gritty. Like you're actually traveling it. How did you find that journey to?
All through Scotland, or just me getting
Just
into.
well, in Scotland in general, like was it? Did you
Yeah,
find it a
it was.
strange?
I did. I mean, I was there when I was younger, and I think going back older, you kind of appreciate a lot of like the nuances of just the ancient people that used to live there, the culture that's there. And like, I'm not one of those Americans that's like, I'm Scottish. I mean, I'm an American, but I have family in Scotland, and like we've connected with them over the years. So it was cool to catch up over years and ultimately kind of see how it was. But we are my wife and I are travelers in the sense where we don't have a lot of plans. We're gonna land in Glasgow, we're gonna meet a friend in Edinburgh, and then we're just gonna drive north. And we gotta be at the family's place in 3 days. Let's just figure it out as we go. Cause maybe something catches your eye. Maybe there's a cool site that you learned about from somebody in a pub and you just go. So if you have it too locked down, you kind of lose that curiosity. And I think for us, when we travel, whether it's in Central America, South America, Europe, we have a very loose plan and just kind of whatever happens, happens.
You're very much like a Scottish bloke watching a World Cup. It's like, oh, turned up in a pub 6 days later, no idea. I went off on a
Exactly.
tour. But you always
Exactly.
have a new best friend every bar you go into.
Oh, that's awesome. We did. We had some. She was pregnant at the time, so she was like 1 month away from giving birth. So I was like, well, I'm gonna experience some of the brews, and but I'm like, you're gonna have to drive some. And I was like, it was a whole different experience because we just drove, and but it was everywhere we went. Everyone was just super friendly. They wanted to hear me talk because I had an accent. I'm like, you all have the accent, but good time overall.
Well, we'll have to get you on a whiskey tour the next time you're over. You know, get
Gosh.
sampling the true brews.
All
But
right. I'm in.
but that's opens up the sort of the first real question. It's like, how do you explain who you are and what you do? Because you must get asked this millions of times, but have you got it down to this kind of like standard answer, or is it just as you find yourself?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think a lot of, you know, young men and older men, they want to follow a certain sort of like make and model. They feel comfortable within it. And I think for me, I don't necessarily follow an exact kind of like pathway on this is who I am. I always like to mix it up. So like every year I like to experience something new. So maybe that kind of shapes how I go about approaching the world or different travels and different adventures. It always impacts you in a different way. And I try to not live in this constant box. We try to kind of break out of it. But I think when most people ask what you do, I always kind of say, or like who are you? I'm just gonna live by this simple way of like, I'm a guy that chose not to listen to everybody else, chose to listen to himself and do what truly made him, happy, brought him a level of peace. And that was staying outside, playing in the woods, making stone tools, teaching people, writing books, running my own podcast, doing lectures, doing a lot of things that brought me joy. And I think that's kind of like ultimately who I am.
Because if you look at your history, something that pops out a lot, you know, that you taught leadership, that you're teaching people survival skills, and also the like prehistoric tools and things like that, all always comes in the teacher identity. Do you think you were always a teacher disguised as other things?
I think so. I think my approach into the teaching is leading and teaching by example. Like as much as I like to tell people this is what you need to do to achieve a certain task, whether it's making a certain stone tool or to be able to last, a weekend in the woods, I like to be that example that's doing it with them. So they kind of see that ground truth and that proof on exactly what is happening. But I think there's always been a bit of a teacher, an instructor, an educator, if you will, in my blood.
So, was there something that you always felt as a mission to try get across to people that like we needed to connect better with nature? You know, like when you look back across your life, is there like a thread that connects the Donny that was in the military to the Donny that we know now to just you as a person?
Yeah, I think curiosity. I think people need to be more curious about the world, and I think I've been a very curious, young man into my teens, 20s, 30s, and now into my 40s. I've been curious about people and about culture and about places, and I think a lot of people they kind of get roped into this online world with social media and they see these places, they see people experiencing these very unique things, and they just get a little bit of satisfaction from it. They're almost satiated. And they kind of say, well, I don't think I'm going to do it because I just maybe saw it online. I think that just kind of fires me up to say, that person got to live an experience. I want to be curious about that. And I want to go and actually do. I want to go and live. I want to walk from this place to this place. I want to swim with sharks. I want to climb mountains. I just want to do it all. And the military gave me a lot of that curiosity, but it was a little bit more focused. They're like, you are going to go to the Middle East and fight in the war. Okay. you know, but the military definitely fosters that kind of leadership as well as, hey, you could do whatever you want to do in the military. You can just be the average Marine. But if you want to go bigger and better, be curious about those opportunities and seize them as they're sitting right in front of you.
Because you certainly took curiosity to like another level. And yes, I hate myself for using that.
No
Because
worries.
you went into sort of human intelligence and, you know, you got to know some real scum and some real good people across the world and in different areas and different, you know, geographies, religions, etc. But did that experience, what did it teach you about what people truly want and need as men, as
Yeah.
people in the world?
Yeah. So as a counterintelligence, human intelligence, agent, in the Marine Corps, I think my biggest exposure was that despite everyone's cultural differences and religious differences and geographic differences, we are all still the same. And we still look for kind of like love of the family. We look for our own safety and security, whether that comes through financial means or a physical presence, maybe in the form of a wall or a firearm or something to that extent. We are all the same. Like in the most simplest forms, if we were to take like Maslow's hierarchy of needs all the way to the top, all the way down to the
Mm.
bottom, most people live in that kind of bottom rung. They want to feel safe. They want to feel loved. They want to feel the embrace of that kind of community around them. And I don't think if it was, a guy in the Middle East or someone in Southeast Asia or someone in Africa or South America, it's all the same thing. And you find a way to relate to those people, but then there's also identifying the darker side of things. What can drive somebody to go to great lengths to obtain those sort of bottom layer wants, whether it is money or safety or just, security. People will go to lengths to get those. And I think once you can understand that the human being, the human psyche is very flexible. And when one of those things are compromised, people will go to great lengths to preserve themselves as well as their family. And when you realize that, you can kind of use it as a tool in certain ways, but you can't use it as a tool to, ultimately destroy. You have to use it as a tool to better understand, to ultimately kind of preserve and do your job as you move forward through, any experience with any culture.
So, how do you sort of use that? Because when you're looking at somebody who is maybe, people who are starving or not got shelter, etc., they're just coming and asking for help, etc. But then you have the ones who they see it, they're within the right to decide that your version is not the right way to live, etc. Sort of like modern culture does to a lot of other sort of hobbies and that at the minute. How do you understand somebody but not attack them, but to kind of understand them but not follow their behaviors, if that makes sense? Because a lot of guys
Yeah.
are acting against how they truly want to be to fit into society. How did you find that in the military? Because you had somebody with the end of a gun rather than the end of a
Yeah.
pen.
Yeah. I think the military gave me a whole different level of what it is to be, a man, what it is to be someone who is willing to kind of lay your life on a line for the person's next to you. And I always kind of paint it in this like kind of weird sort of picture of people. I say, well, depending on where I'm going, I know there's obviously threats and this, that, and the other, but no one at that present point in time is trying to kill me. So I can go into it with a different level of ease. That the military has prepared me and conditioned me, even, after being out for so many years, that it's it's you have your own confidence based off of your own experiences, and that gives you the ability to move forward without like worrying about what other people think, how to, try and fit into a group that maybe you don't belong to, or a group you want to belong to, but you'll go to great lengths to get into that group. The military, as a teenager, was that group. It gave me the foundation, it gave me the confidence, and it gave me the direction to say I can do what I want, and I don't really need anybody else's approval, which is kind of different because in the military, there's a chain of command. But also in the Marine Corps, we exercise, if you are in a position of leadership, and every Marine's a leader, make decisions, make choices, stand by your choices, and just make those choices. Even if they're wrong, we'll learn from them and we'll keep moving forward. And I think a lot of young men as well as older men, they don't really have those options. They're not accustomed to making decisions, sticking by those decisions, and then more importantly, if the decision's wrong, admitting that it's wrong and trying to move forward. So for me, I'm willing to try and do everything and anything. And if it's not working, cool, it didn't work. I'm not going to wear my heart on my sleeve and be like, my world is over because I attempted this and I failed at it. No, you just okay. I'm done with that. Let's move on to the next thing. So it kind of shapes your mind in a way where you're never really worried or trying to fit in a group or in a place because you are your own. You know what I mean? Like I'm just confident with who I am, always will be, and it's never going to go away. Sometimes it's one of those downsides, I guess, but it works.
Because that's the thing in it, is like, how many people, if you truly asked them, are they comfortable or confident in themselves, they would go, yeah, yeah, and you could hear that little nerve in their
Yeah.
voice, and they wouldn't know what to do. Like, look at COVID, look at power cuts. People shit a brick a second their phones are off. And do you find that that's the part that the military teaches you, that the art of, like, accountability, to make mistakes, to let you blossom and then find yourself?
Yeah, I would actually label it resilience. They build you up in your ability to be resilient through lots of failure, getting screamed at, getting, bruised and battered and broken, but it builds up this resilience. So if you take my experiences in the military, I've seen a lot, I've done a lot, and I've enjoyed every bit of it. But all of those small moments that lead up to those big moments, it's made me a very much more resilient person. Some people don't have that opportunity. They get a bad grade on a test. Maybe they get a bad review at work and their world is over. It really impacts them. And I think the Marine Corps shaped me to say, look, when you messed up, we're going to let you know you messed up, but then we're also going to give you kind of the tools and the keys to success to move forward and not make those same mistakes again. So no matter, like I tell my, now three sons, no matter whatever your worst day is, that's just your worst day. It could always be worse, but keep that in the back of your mind and use it as a tool. So when my two oldest boys were, God, so when one was 16 and the other one was 13, I brought them out into some really remote deserts and we went walking, very little gear. There's very little water. And we wound up doing like 40 some miles from early in the morning to late in the evening. And we were moving. And now, don't get me wrong, they had done stuff like this before, but this is kind of when they were a little bit older. And, they just kind of used that one trip, that one experience as kind of a something to hold on to, a little kind of cornerstone, if you will, that they could be having a bad day anywhere else. They can look back to that experience and be like, is today as hard as it was that one day out in the Utah desert with dad when we were digging for water, drinking from streams, and we had no food and we were hot and we were sweaty. One of them pulled a hamstring. One of them was just, covered in sweat. Is it as bad as that? No, it's not. So let's just move forward. We'll get over it. It will always end. And I think the Marine Corps just built this level of resilience in me that I don't think, a lot of people have, but they do get there. Some people have their own ways of getting there. And I'll give you another example. When I was 37, I had a massive heart attack. My left anterior descending artery had a 99% like blockage. And it's not because of drugs or alcohol or anything like that. It was just genetics. And basically, doctors were kind of like, you're going to have to slow down in life. You're going to have to take it easy. You have a heart condition. Just laid out all of this stuff and really painted this picture of like, your life is now going to be like this. It's going to have to slow down. And I think it just gave me something else to look at where it kind of fired me up to say, there's no way this is going to happen to me. I'm like, I would rather keep living a life, an even more intensified life, because I know this happens. So most heart attack patients typically will die from a second heart attack. So I use that as my example. It's like, well, that's kind of lucky and fortunate for me. I already had one heart attack. It's very likely I'll have a second one. So knowing that, what am I going to do from this day moving forward? And from that point, it shaped my very existence where it's like, well, when opportunities come that I want to do and I'm excited about, I'm going to do them. When there's something I don't want to do, just say no. Because a lot of people, they're afraid to say no or to reject somebody or say, hey, I'm not interested. It gave me a point to shape my life moving forward at the age of 37, which is very young, to say now, from this day forward, you have to approach life in a way that you're going to maximize it because that's what you want to do. A lot of men, they always focus on everybody else. And slowly but surely, they slowly kind of wither away and they kind of, they put everybody else first and it kind of impacts them the hardest. And I think for me is, well, I'm going to focus on me, but I'm still going to focus on my family. But for the first time in 37 years of life, I'm going to prioritize my health, my well-being. And then I was able to quickly realize that when my health, my well-being, and like my four mark tattoo, which stands for my mental, physical, emotional, and primal well-being, when those four marks or those four ideas are aligned, I'm that much better for my sons. I'm that much better for the people around me. And it's seems counterintuitive because most men are told to always put everybody else first. But when you actually put yourself first, you focus on you, it makes it that much easier to bring everybody else up and support them and love them and care for them. So that was a very unique turning point. But the Marine Corps, I swear, if I would not been in the Marine Corps, I think my approach would have been a little bit different. It built so much resilience in me where I was like, shoot, a heart attack, 37 years old. Okay. That's just enough. No one's trying to kill me. Let's just heal from it and keep moving forward. And that's what I did. Wrote some books. After that, how I went about and healed my body in a natural way. It just shaped everything moving forward.
Because there's like the keto thing into it of like, wearing the harshest dress, eating the worst food, and that. So you always get, what the lowest point could be, but you took that
Exactly.
to a legendary conclusion. What was it
Exactly.
like though at that point? When your identity was taken away of being the guy that was prepared, the guy that was organized, the guy that knew what was going on, to suddenly take that capability away from you when you were ill. Did you ever
Yeah.
have that real earth shattering awakening, or?
Yeah, I think so. It kind of came in two ways. So when it happened to me, everyone was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it happened to you." Like, keep in mind, when this was going on, I was training for a super jungle ultra marathon down in Peru. It was like 245K over like given number of days, completely by yourself. So I was in like peak physical condition. People kept saying, "Man, I can't believe this happened to you, man." And I took that opportunity and say, "Well, here, kind of exactly what you said. Prepared, I'm physically fit, I'm always kind of on point. If it can happen to me, it can happen to you. So let me be the example on why you should be prepared. You should be mentally, physically, emotionally, and primally kind of aligned. You should have your finances in order. You should be able to tell your kids that you love them. You should have all of these things ready to go 24/7 because it did happen to me. The person
Hmm.
that is always, you know, leading the charge or ready to go 24/7, it hits the ego a little bit. But I said, all right, I can sit here and beat myself up over it, or I can say, all right, did happen to you. How can this help other people? And that's kind of what led into like my first book called Scavenger. Was I wanted to shape my old life. I wanted to scavenge bits and pieces from that old life, apply it to my new life kind of going forward. Not because they were bad, but I needed to feed off of some of those things. And it led me down this next path of life. And I mean, it's only been positive. It really has. I've enjoyed it. And next year will be like that 10-year anniversary on February 3rd of having a heart attack.
It's great that you can look to that, like that positivity of it. But when you look at it now, back now, was there anything that you were hiding from? Was there anything that you were glad it happened because it let you tackle that part of your life? Or was there anything that, if you look, you think, if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be the person I am today?
Yeah, I think the one thing that it really gave me was I was able to look at personal relationships. And I said, and to keep in mind, this is even before there was any online presence. It wasn't on Instagram, TikTok, none of that. No phone, none of it. I looked at all of the personal relationships that I had and said, do these people bring me a value? And not like a value in the sense of a monetary value, but do they aid? Do they provide me with something that I long for or that I seek out, whether it's guidance or advice or kinship, something to that extent. And those people that didn't provide that value, just got rid of them. And I mean, got rid of them in the sense where some of those conversations were like, I think we're just on two different fields. And I'm playing this direction, you're playing that direction. It's been great knowing you, but I'm going to go about my way. And those were the things that I think that it gave me a confidence to say, I need to do what's right for me. Again, focusing on me and provide those people like because if I didn't see them as a value, I guarantee you they didn't see me as a value. So it was just kind of like an easy separation. And that was with personal relationships and like former work relationships, people from my past. If they didn't present me a value today, then they're not in. And I still live by that. Like I'm not a guy that goes out for beers with his buddies or his boys. I don't go to bachelor parties. I don't go to golf weekends with my boys, none of that sort of stuff. If I'm doing anything, it's with my sons, it's with my wife, or a small group of people that they are my value. They they give me curiosity, they educate me, I educate them. There is a relationship there that is based on mutual understanding where it's more of like a trust, it's more of a family. And I always tell people like if you have my number, you're part of that value system. Like I want to communicate with you. And there's a handful of them in the state of Colorado, and there's a handful that are outside of the state of Colorado that I make it a point to chat with them and to reach out to them. Those that's the value that I look for today. And it doesn't have anything to do with business. It doesn't have anything to do with likes on a video. It just has to do that. Do they make me a better person? And can I reciprocate that value and make them a better person?
And is there a kind of criteria, or is there something that you look for in each of the person? In addition to making you more curious, to sparking that ignition in life, what is there something that you look for in each of these people?
Absolutely. This is when I go back to my old counter intel, human intelligence days. I assess them for a period of time and say, when are they trustworthy? Are they going to do what they, say they're going to do? And do we have similar values? Like I'm not a very religious man in zero way, shape, or form. That doesn't impact my relationships with them. I want to see them as if they are married, are they good to their wife? Are they good to their kids? Do they take care of themselves? Do we have a similar kind of make and model in the ways going forward? Can I call them up and say, hey, man, I'd love to get together and do something as families? Do they have enough confidence to say, you know what, man, I would. My son's got a baseball game. We're not going to be able to do it. That's what I want. I don't want them
Mm.
to suddenly manipulate their whole family situation to accommodate me. I want them to stay focused and true to their family and say, cool, we'll make it work another day. Let's shoot a couple dates where we can get everybody together and go, hiking or go do this or go do that. That's the sort of relationship that I want with a man. And I say a man because I don't have friends that are females that I would connect with or contact in any way, shape, or form. Like my wife is my best friend, and it's kind of one of those things where we have similar likes and we have similar interests. And if it's like one of those things where it would make her feel uncomfortable if I was like, oh, so and so's wife is really nice. And we do have friends like this, but like I don't have that
Mm.
relationship where I'm texting them to being like, hey, we're going to come over on this weekend, or hey, we're going to link up like it's with the husband. It's not a traditional marriage, but it's a respectful marriage where my wife is my everything, my kids are my everything, and the community of people around me are also my everything. And I value them because they value me. And there's a reciprocity of what we can do to build each other up. That's the most important thing.
Does that stem? This is probably going to be a bit of a weird question, but does that stem
Mhm.
from like the prehistoric work that you've done? You've kind of liked the tribes,
Yes.
the family unit, but you're also fixing it. But you're in your area, and then you move with your people. You don't go to the outsiders, etc. You have that
Yeah.
tight knit group.
Yeah. I always
It's
call it's that kind of family like kinship. There's a family group, and then there's those people that are in your tribe or in your clan or your cohort, and they are just of similar makes and models. And somebody could be, banker, but they could still enjoy some of the leisure time with their family. And we have found a way to connect. And it doesn't really matter the age, it's just that it is. So I think from a prehistoric standpoint, if we're going back to like hunter gatherer societies, whether it's 20,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago, there is a keep your family group small because then it's very easy to rely on them, one, and then two, to help them out when they need some help. And like that help is very, impactful in certain ways.
because it's interesting that you've got this sort of tight knit group and stuff, but then when you had the heart attack, Most people would have gone off and had the green smoothies and they would have taken up pickleball. You did the most logical thing to you and went and lived in a cave for a period of time.
I did.
What,
I
what
did.
was the reasoning behind that?
I think I knew in my mind, like the natural world always brought me peace. It brought me clarity. It brought me a lot of different things. And I think that was the best place to go and heal. It was the best place to like reconnect with a very primal sense of who I am and kind of, I don't want to say be reborn, but I would like to say something along the lines of like healing from, and I don't even want to say trauma because that's a very cliche word. I just would say maybe healing from a bad day and finding different ways to get over it. That was the focus. And I always tell people the natural world will heal everything. And I'm not talking like if somebody has like brain cancer, I'm not speaking to that extent, like just go drink some stream water. I'm just saying it can give you some emotional stability. It will give you some of that curiosity, but there are different things in that natural world that can make you feel better, whether it is the plants that you forage, the wild game that you hunt, the shelters that you sleep in, or just the overall experiences. It's very healing and it can set you on the right path to maybe a more kind of, you know, not industrial way, but more of a structured way of healing. So if somebody does have, cancer, heal yourself, heal your mental well-being in the bush, and then take those necessary steps through, a legitimate doctor to, heal whatever that next kind of phase is.
So, what was that first night like? That when you went there. I mean, after you tried to explain to your partner and your kids, like, I'm going into a cave,
Yeah.
and they want you to take it like to rest, etc. What was that night by yourself like? What was going through your mind? What did you kind of? Was there
Yeah.
any kind of appeasements to your soul? Kind of thing?
No, I'm going to be honest with you. It was like going home in certain ways. I had been to these caves before. So it was kind of like, if you think of like some of the most joyous events in your life, whether, and I'm not saying like watching one of your kids being born, but like some of those great experiences that you have, you've done it once, and you know you're going to do it again. It's kind of that. I was just happy to be in this place, and I'm very comfortable being alone, but I was happy to be amongst the cave and the walls and the fire. I was happy to be amongst those friends because it always brought me, a level of peace. And I didn't look at it as, any sort of big like, self-reflection into anything. I was just like, all right, just like the military. We've got a mission. We know what we got to do. Stay out here. Let's heal ourselves. And let's this doesn't need to be documented. Like again, this is all prior to any social media. Like this is about you. Do it, move forward. And that was it.
I love that you
I
took.
go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, I love that you took the most important thing to you as the way to heal, and you just went for it. You didn't say, "No, I'm ignoring what everybody else says. I know what I need to make me happy."
Bingo.
What did it start healing, but what didn't it heal?
So I think what it healed quickest was my mental sort of game. Like when I mean like the mental game, there was a lot of doctors that were telling me, "Hey, you got to slow it down. You got to do this." And I think just by going out there, I was proving them all wrong right after, one after another, day after day. What I don't think it really healed was, it, I mean, it didn't physically heal my heart in the form of like physical heart. It healed my heart in the form of like that metaphorical love of the outdoors and my sons and everything. But I think there was no physical healing of the heart. What I did was I just gave myself time to truly rest and truly kind of be present in what was and ultimately kind of move forward. I don't think I don't think anything negative came from it. I'm sure it could have impacted people, maybe my folks for a while and my kids, and I would travel out to, see my boys and everything. But it was all about making sure that like I could return to the world, so to speak, in the most real form of who I am. It's almost like kind of going back to that like 12, 13, 14-year old you when you're just like the world is there, you're a little bit older, you can kind of do things on your own. That's like where I wanted to be and that's what it gave me.
And did that? come all of a sudden, or was it a gradual thing? Was it a moment that you thought, fuck, I feel confident again, I feel capable again, or did that just being in nature kind of fill your battery back up, so to speak?
Yeah. I would say it filled me back up. But I think the act of just going out, the act of committing to something and then actually executing it kind of was the biggest sort of thing. Because I can't tell you how many people said, "Oh my God, your life is over, man. Like everything's changed for you." And I think, if enough people start to say things, they start to pick away. But I think
Mm.
me listening to, my mental, physical, emotional, primal well-being to just go out and do it, I think that was the biggest kind of revelation, the biggest healing point where it's just committing to and then doing it. That was it. It's not so much proving everybody wrong, but it's more about just saying, you know what you got to do. It's listening to yourself. Because a lot of people, they might want to say, oh, I got to prove everybody wrong. I don't care about everybody else. I want to listen to me, do what I say, do what I feel, and do it.
And is
That's
that
just,
do you think that's what a lot of guys are losing in life just now? That's what
yes.
they're grieving with modern society, technology, etc. That they're not capable. That they just do listen to other people. We don't feel and go and do what we want in life.
Yeah. I think a lot of guys, they get pigeonholed into certain things and they get kind of stereotyped into this is what you have to do, this is what you're supposed to do. And some of them might want to follow those particular paths. But I'll put it to you very easily. Like having three sons and two older sons, we had one rule in our house. And well, we had a lot of rules in our house, but one rule focused around them was like, you guys can't be me. You have to be you. And what that means is I will expose you to everything. I will give you opportunities to climb mountains, to fall down ravines. I will give you plenty of opportunities, but you guys can't be me because what I am is completely different than you. And what I think that did for them was relieve a whole different level of pressure where they don't have to be like dad. And I think a lot of young men, they're faced with that. And it might not be dad per se, but it might be somebody that they view as their hero or that they idolize. They want to be like that person. And the reality is they will never be that person. They will never get to that same level. I mean, you can look at any like famous like footballer, take like Ronaldo for see how many people probably want to be like Ronaldo, but nobody will ever be Ronaldo. I think for
Mm.
most young men, they say I can aim, maybe do things and be at a level, but I want to be authentic and organic to who I am. So with my boys, I said, hey, follow your hearts, do what you want to do. I'm still going to be your dad. I'm not your friend. I will teach you, I will coach you, I will mentor you, and I'll always love you. But be you, do you. And I think that gave them a whole lot less anxiety growing up in this world where there was no pressure from their father to follow into my line or to join the military or to make stone tools. I got one son in college in Japan right now. He took an entire gap year off, saved all of his money, went all throughout Europe and Asia and
Nice.
everywhere else, just exploring, just doing his thing. He turned 18 and left like a month later. That's what he wanted to do. And I think if I was a different dad, I would have said, you have to go to college as soon as you graduate high school. That's what you're supposed to do. For him, I was saying, do what you want to do. Make sure you have a plan, make sure you can execute it. This isn't dad funded, but go and do it. And even with my, middle son right now, it's the same thing. Like, do you want to play lacrosse in college? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Pick one of those. And if you want to do it, do it. But there's no stress from me. You won't be living in my basement as a 20, 30-year old, grown man mooching off a dad. That's not how this life works. But I gave them enough to know how to think and not necessarily what to think. So I think a lot of young men, they struggle with that with as much social media presence. And I'm I don't consider myself to blame for that because a lot of people are like, man, I would love to be able to do the things that you do. And I say, go do it. What is stopping you? And they come up with a couple reasons. Well, I live in a city. Take a train into the bush, to get a car. There's so many different ways to be curious and to just go and do, but they're constantly told, no, don't do this, don't do this. Oh, you can't. Oh, you don't have enough time. Just go do it. Like, don't be me. I am who I am. Nobody else will be me. You do you and be the best version of you, and you'll be totally fine.
And is that what you found with a lot of your clients, a lot of the guys you've worked with, in the services, etc., that a lot of them do as they're told because they don't know who they are. They're almost asking for permission, and that's your greatest skill is letting them find that they are capable and they have got the skills within them.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of men that I bring out in the bush, and they want to know how to do it this way, how to do it this way. I bring them out there and I say, look, here's the number one rule out here. It's a way. It's not necessarily the way. So how you build a shelter to stay warm that night, that's a way. It doesn't have to be this way that you saw in a book or this way you saw on TV. Think about if you're going to be cold tonight, what can you do to make tonight just a little bit better? You don't have to follow what you have been told day one, day two, day three, and all the way up into your current day. So use your curiosity, use your creativity, and try to solve those problems. Because what I try to get people to do is just make decisions when they're in the woods. Hey, but I try to educate them because you don't know what you don't know. But I do try to educate them that, hey, if we are looking to employ, some traps to trap some game, here are some, best practices. We're looking for this. We're looking for dens. We're looking for, ground spore. We're looking for anything that would be an indicator this is a good place. Now, if they say, hey, I'm going to set my trap up here, and I know in my heart of heart that that's not a good place, we're going to set it up there. They made a choice, they made the decision, and that's a good decision. Now, the next morning, it might not have any food in it, but then we can use that as a learning point and say, all right, why do you think this is? Oh, I think I was just a little far from the den entrance. And I say, all right, well, look above. What do you see? Oh, there's a nest. Maybe that could have been some sort of bird of prey. How would we overcome this? And they start to make those decisions. And me just kind of painting the scenario, saying, oh, I should probably move it over here and maybe face it away from the sun. Good, let's try that again. And when you got a couple days to do that, the light bulb starts to click. And these men that were afraid to make decisions are suddenly like just running themselves. They're totally running all of their own kind of day-to-day functions. And I'm there to, I like to use the word teach, coach, and mentor. I can teach you some hard skills. I can coach you in those processes and give you some examples. And then I can mentor you through those hours and through those days. That is my opportunity for those young men to make decisions of their own free will. That's their own autonomy. There's no books. We're not bringing out, diagrams and stuff. More importantly, I'm not giving out certificates. I'm not giving out badges. I'm not giving out little stickers and little, Velcro patches. You're not going to get shit because what you just got, if that's your only thing you're focused on, is a little say, hey, I went through Donny Dust's 10-day survival course. I went through Donny Dust's 5-day primitive skills walkabout. If that's all you're focused on, then you're missing the big picture. You know what I mean? It's everything in those 5 days or those 10 days, all of the knowledge and the skills and the abilities that you gain. That's what you get to carry with you, not a patch. Patch, hey, save that for Instagram. We're out here to do work. We're out here to learn this stuff. We're actually out here to live. So that's my decision making for him.
It's time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
And do you think that's almost like you become that leader, that father figure, that role model that a lot of men don't have in their life, that we don't have that rite of passage anymore like you would have had back in like the olden days. We now
Yeah.
don't become men, so we don't know where we fit in, and you're giving them that ability to find themselves.
Yeah. I think most men do know this. I think they do know where they fit in, but they're easily influenced from everybody. Deep down inside, there's that small little golden nugget. They know where they fit in, but they start to believe their own doubts. And I think sometimes they might need somebody to kind of slap them on the ass and say, you got to go this way. This is the direction you're going. After I point you in that right direction, the decisions are up to you. But that's kind of what my role is. Maybe it is like the village elder, so to speak, but it's like, I'm going to point you in the right direction, but that's just the direction. Every step you take, every turn, every twist, you're still going in that direction, but all those choices are in your hands. I think a lot of men know this. I truly believe there is that innate, there is that kind of raw primal sense of truly who they are, but they never really get to kind of live it. They never get to breathe it. I've brought professional athletes, doctors, construction workers, mechanics, everybody and anybody you can think about into the bush. And there's this common kind of sense when they're walking out, like, can't believe I just did that. Or, man, I'll tell you what, I feel just rejuvenated. Like they just tapped into something
Yeah.
that was totally primal. And don't get me wrong, we're not out there yelling and growling into the woods. Like we're not into this like scream camps. I'm not into this like masculine energy. I don't play any of those freaking games. Living in the bush is a completely different game. There are no stakes. We're not having beers. If we don't find food, we don't eat. If we don't build our shelter, then you stay cold. If we don't walk to water, you're not drinking. It's real. Like I'm out there with a whole bunch of experience to teach, coach, and mentor them. But like this is 100% real in every way, shape, or form. So they walk out of the bush. I kind of say, you're going to walk into the bush with absolutely nothing. And you're going to walk out of the bush with absolutely everything. It's perspective, it's confidence, it's resilience. More importantly, it's ground truth. It's ground truths into who you are and what you can do. Remember, when I was referencing my boys in the desert, they had that day to fall back on. Now, these men have a day to fall back on. They could be at work 1 week later and say, you know what? My boss is really hounding me, but it's not as bad as it was 1 week ago when I didn't eat for 3 days because I couldn't figure out how to set up this trap. Even after Donnie showed me 10 times, he wouldn't give me the answer. I'm not going to go over and do it for you. I'll show you 10 times, but you have to do it.
Hmm.
He's going to think, it's not as bad as that. My boss is just an asshole. We'll get through this day and move on to the next. That's what young men need.
Because
I love it.
a lot of people used to think like capability created the confidence to then act and be that ground truth that you're talking about. That it's like not permission; it's more just awakening who you truly are. It's what was it? Has there been a great transformation that you can think of? Somebody that's completely you've had them in thinking, "Geez, here we go," and then they've left a completely different person. That's you've given them that personal power.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a lot of like, and there's been a large number of students over the years. I think some of the ones that really kind of stick with me are dads that have daughters. And it sounds kind of weird, but a lot of dads that have daughters, I think most daughters, and I'm kind of stereotyping, they're not maybe wanting to go live for 5 days with next to nothing in the bush. But I think a lot of those dads, they always have this sense of, could I take care of my daughters, my wife, if we were in this kind of remote setting?
Hmm.
And I think that translates into a daily life because they might be able to provide them food on the table every night, maybe a car in the driveway or all the books that they need for school. But that's a very controlled environment. But when you go into the bush, the natural environment removes that control and they want to experience, can I take care of my daughters everywhere in this raw environment? It's raining because I think for a father, when he's maybe looking at his daughters or even his wife or a man with his girlfriend, there's a sense of like that manhood comes over. I have to protect. I have to provide. I have to do all these things. And I think for a lot of those dads that have come out and their information is like, I've got 3 daughters, I've got 2 daughters. I want to be able to bring them camping and not have them be miserable. More importantly, I want to be able to take care of them. We're going to go for, I have 2 daughters that are in their 20s and we're going to go for a 40-mile hike. I want to make sure that they're okay. They've never done this. It's those sort of things where it's like, those dads, they come out because I expose them to like a very harsh reality of what the natural world can provide. And then they ultimately fill that void of like, you know, how many people go, they're going to go for a hike and they're like, oh man, what happens if I twist my ankle? Well, he just spent 5 days with me. He knows he's not going to twist his ankle. He's got to worry about sun exposure and dehydration. Like those are the real ground truths that he now has
Yeah.
put into his back pocket. So when he's with his daughters, he can quickly analyze and assess and say, oh, we don't need to worry about that. But we are getting above 10,000 feet. Lightning strikes are a little bit more probable up here. Let's drop down in elevation and take a different route. That's the ground truth. Those are the guys that are like, man, I just feel, fired up and invigorated that now I can do this with my daughters, with my loved ones. And I feel confident I can kind of take on that man role and really provide for them when we're out in the bush.
And is that the capability that you think all men are grieving, or is there different things you see in different people, or is it all coming down to that universal ground truth that a lot of guys just have never been taught how to be men, and we don't know how to, and we look at like Andrew Tate and these kind of morons rather than likes
Uh,
yourself?
yeah, I think it's very easy to say you're a man. You know what I mean? But there's like I think like I do like Andrew Tate and some of those guys that are always just running their mouths 24/7. Um, they can have their own successes, but it's by a group of people that view that as successful because that group of people have ultimately been swayed into having a Bugatti and having this and having all these things is what it is to be a man. But I can tell you the other night when my refrigerator's fan went out, I was able to fix it. For my wife, that's being a man. Being able to chop firewood to burn during the winter, that's being a man. To be able to hunt game, that's man. Being able to provide financially, those are things that I believe men should do. I just think the modern world kind of shapes what a man is because it's easy to portray something online and then not have to live it in their real life. And that's where
Yeah.
I think most young men they get caught up in that and they're like, oh man, this is how I'm supposed to treat women and I need to do this and I need to do that. And it's like, you don't have to. Like, there is a piece, there is a ground truth in what it is. And that doesn't mean only going out into the bush. It means a lot of different things, but you have to be able to take parts and pieces. More importantly, the whole flip side of this is when I don't know something, finding somebody who can. Like, I'm not a very good mechanical guy. I can do basic maintenance on a car, but when I need to work on my car, I go to somebody that knows. That's finding that tribe, that group of people that you can trust that bring that value, saying, all right, hey, look, man, I need help with my car. Can you help me out? And he's not gonna be like, oh, you whatever, you should know how to do this. It's like, no, he gets it. I can help him out with things. He can help me out with things. It's finding that little community, it's finding that tribe, that clan to ultimately get those things done. But like I think a lot of young men are warped and they're swayed. And I hate using the word influencer, but they are heavily influenced by the wrong types of men because those that speak the loudest typically fall the quickest.
I love that. And do you think
Right on.
that's the main reason for a lot of guys is that they're not missing survival skills as such, they're missing the need, the feeling of being needed, the feeling of personal power, of providing for their tribe, so to speak.
Exactly. I think it's a very accurate statement. Like it doesn't have to tie into survival. That's just my make and model. But I think like a lot of men they just don't know or they would need to figure out or they need to develop that confidence and what they bring to their tribe's table. How do they? Because there's hunters, there's gatherers, there's scavengers, there's basket makers, there's all these different groups in that tribe. What do you provide? What do you bring? And if you're doing the same as somebody else, it's totally fine. You guys can work together. But I think a lot of young men they struggle because they're told, hey, you could just be a student, or hey, you're going to be a student athlete. You're just going to do these things. I think most young men. I mean, I couldn't imagine in this day and age. Like I feel for my boys, but they've had it a little bit different. Like being told this is what you're going to do and this is how you're going to do it, and it's not by parents. It's by people they'll never meet, and they believe
Yep.
them. It just blows my mind. You know what I mean? And I'm 46. I didn't grow up with YouTube or that this level of technology, but I had my fathers and my uncles the positive men in my life, as well as a bunch of drill instructors telling me what it was. First, they break you down, then they build you up, and that builds that confidence. But I could never imagine believing somebody that I've never met, I've never bled with, I've never sweat with, I've never sacrificed my body in any way, shape, or form with. Like, but they do it. They just believe them. Crazy world, man.
It's
Crazy
especially
world.
since people realize that masculinity could be a moneymaker. You know, they could sell
Mm.
masculinity or a perceived version of it. And I was always fine with who I was. I was kind of bumbling along, and then the podcast started introduced me to great guys like you. And then all of a sudden, I was like, "Oh, right, there's this whole new world of confidence, ability, etc." But a lot of people don't have a clue what they're doing. And since my nephews have been born, I've kind of gone, well, I'm a niece. I've been like, oh shit, I don't want them to have to struggle in any way. Did that happen with your kids, or were you already feeling that in yourself as much? Like, how did becoming a father change you as much in what you don't want to stop with you, but what also you want to pass on to the next generation?
Yeah. I think when I became a father, I had some great examples on what it was to be a father. My father, I had my grandfather, I had my brother-in-law. I think those were the examples. And I think everyone likes to have this tragic story where they didn't know their father and all this sort of trauma in life. My parents loved me. They were very strict, but they loved me. And I think my father gave me the best example. But he also gave me some examples that I could learn from on maybe things that I would want to do different. So I was able to take all of these positive father figures and influences in my life, take out the tools that I wanted from them, shape them into my own, and then apply that kind of going forward. It's there's no instruction book for being a dad. If there was one instruction book and it was right, there would just be one book, and this would be like how to be a dad. But like how I parent my 20-year-old is different than how I parent my 17-year-old, and definitely different than how I parent my 4-month old. So it's one of those things where I think men sometimes they don't have those positive male role models. So they'll seek out those that are just willing to talk to them, and maybe it kind of gets them in the wrong influence. I don't know if that answers your question, but like I just had good examples and used them as things that I wanted to do forward. You know what I mean? I remember once when I was younger, I could see the things my father was doing, and I still do those things today because that's what it was to be a father. He would take care of, my I had two older sisters and my mom. He would work late. He would do all these things, and then he would still find time to show up for me when I was, playing in a baseball game or I was fishing down at a pond. He would still find time to show up. And like I've used that as a tool to say, I need to be present for my boys, no matter their ages, going forward.
So, are there just parts of what your father did that you don't want to pass on? That you kind of went, no, I need to stop this? Or are there things in your son, because of that modern technology, you thought, I need to show them this before this part of society dictates them?
Yes. So I think I grew up in a generation where like spankings and not like abusing your kids was a thing, but spankings and like getting hit with a spatula, it
Oh,
was
yes.
definitely more popular. I had plenty of them, but I always told myself, I'm like, man, if I ever have kids, I'm not going to do that. So it requires you to think a little bit strategically. One, if I'm 30 years old and my son's 5 and he does something wrong and I hit him, I could hurt him, and that's not where I wanted to go. So it was a very easy decision to say, how I discipline my kids will be the purest form of discipline. And it really came from like military, where sometimes the best leaders, they will do the punishment with their Marines. So like a platoon messes up, they're the ones handing out the punishment. They're also going to be involved in that punishment. And it gives you a sense of like, man, I really respect this dude. It's that sort of thing. So when my two older boys messed up, it was very much all right. This is your guys' punishment. This is what we're doing. We're all doing it together. Granted, sometimes it's a little confusing for them, but then they start to kind of realize, like, man, we're also like we did this, but Dad is also taking this punishment with us. It kind of helps them. And then you have to be a little bit better communicator because you're communicating with words and actions compared to smacking somebody with a spoon or something like that. Um, I think, and what was that second part of your question? I don't know.
So it was, is there something that you're trying your hardest to kind of teach them that so society doesn't then dictate it to them?
Yes, yes, yes. Um, so my boys have become very exposed to a lot of things in the natural world, but I've also want them to become very experienced in technology because that's just the world we live in, which is also, they've helped me out a little bit. But I also teach them that they are not less than anybody else. I don't care what their skin color is. I don't care where they've been born or anything like this. You are not bad people because you had parents that loved you. You were brought up in an environment. You are not less, and you are not better than anybody else. You are who you are, and you can craft what you want to be going forward. Like, do not listen to people that want to place you in a box, that want to put you in a rank and a column and say, this is what you are. You break that mold and you show them that you're not. And like, don't live by that. Live by what you want to be. It's so many, I feel bad for a lot of young men because that's just what they're told they're going to do. And they've never given the opportunity to push back to say, well, what if I don't want to do that? Like, they're like, I had my sons in athletics when they were younger, and they understood when dad gave them an invite and when dad gave them direction. So, hey, you guys are, in athletics and they're a couple of years apart. Oldest one's like, I don't think I want to try this sport. I don't want to do this sport this year. I want to try this one. Well, instead of me being like, no, you're going to do it because that's what I'm doing and that's your brother, that's what he's doing, and it's just easier for practices. So, well, why do you want to do that? Let's break this down. Give him the opportunity at those younger ages to feel confident to talk to his parents and also say, well, this is kind of why I want to do it. I want to explore this. I want to try this. I want to experience that. Great. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. But once you commit, you got to commit, not for the long term, but you got to commit for the duration of that thing. And I just gave them the opportunity to kind of make decisions at a young age, but appropriate to their age. I wasn't going to have my 8-year-old be like, all right, I need you to start thinking about how you want to do this or how you want to do this. It's like, all right, these are your daily tasks. Do these tasks. Once you guys are done with those tasks, then we can move on to something else. Task them out to their abilities, task them out to their ages. Builds
I love that
confidence.
because you went to the Arctic. You went there as one of the most prepared people. You
Yeah.
then left on date. You came out and you apologized to your kids, etc. You were a bit emotional about it, but
Yeah.
that probably taught them far more about strength, power, responsibility than anything else that you could have done. How did that change you and your relationship with them? Did it help you understand yourself and them any better?
Yeah. I think it did a couple things. I think once they saw me as like, dad is human. He can be emotional. He can have all these sort of different feelings about this experience. And it's okay. It's okay to be honest with yourself and with those people that are around you. And I think also for them, it was it was kind of one of those things where like they realize that not everything in life will be perfect. Not everything in life will be 100% at all times. A lot of parents like to tell their kids, it's going to be fine. You did great on this. You did great on that. They're just lying to their kids. And I think for them, they saw and had this image of me and then not completing it. Uh, you know, Dad's human. More importantly, sometimes bad things can happen, but it's what you do after those sort of things.
Mm.
And I think they just got to see an honest level of me in like a very low form, but then also see how it can rise, what can happen after it. Because I mean, there's been, I think, what, 13 seasons of Alone. And you could probably say there's been well over 100 losers on Alone. And there's been 13 winners, but it's like, you know,
I'd say they're all winners.
yeah,
Good.
I mean, yeah, the very simple form, they are all winners. But it's kind of like when we just look at it in, the black and white, there's winners and there's losers. But I think those people that didn't complete the challenge, you know, are they still holding on to that however many years later? Like people online, they'll, sometimes like, oh, it happened on a morning. I'm like, fuck, it was one of the best days I ever had because I got to realize I'm not 100% invincible. I knew what I needed to do to get better. Couldn't do it. Had a tap. I'm okay. I'm now, 10 years later, 8 years later, I'm okay. I'm not holding on to that. So I think
Mm.
for my boys, even now, to see that I've let it go. That was just a small chapter in dad's book. We're done with it. Moving on to bigger and better things, not to hold on to that sort of that anger or any sort of guilt or anything in that capacity. Just move on, man. Resilience. That's what this is about. I've failed more times than I've had successes in many ways, shapes, and forms. And I think for them, like it's okay to fail. It's totally fine to fail. It's just what happens after because failure is inevitable. Anyone that tells you they haven't failed at something, they're instantly lying. We all have. But I think for them, they got to see it in their dad, which made it even more true. They're like, all right, you know what? We can fall on our sword, pull that sword out. It's gonna be covered in blood, but let's wipe it off. Let's put it back in the sheath and let's kind of keep going forward.
Because it probably links back to that original message you were saying about the military teaching you to make mistakes, but to learn from them. And because I mean,
Absolutely.
8 days living on your own out in the Arctic is a fucking impressive thing to do. But I love how that you showed them that it's not about ego, it's not about well I did it and you didn't, or any of that kind of stuff. You just
Yeah,
went, yeah, I'm human. We make mistakes, but this is what
that's
you
it.
learn from it. Were you
That's it.
worried about the
Yeah,
reaction at all?
I think I was more worried about like maybe my persona to them, but I think it was what I needed to be honest with you. Because I mean, I've been sick in the woods before, and I've spent months in the bush plenty of times. But I think it was also something I just needed to where like you can be the most prepared, you can be the most whatever, but it's a good example on sometimes why you need a tribe, why you need a clan. Sometimes you need help from people because
Mm.
I got sick and I knew what I needed to heal. I needed a specific sort of plant, couldn't find it. But if somebody was out there with me, maybe they could have found it. They could have helped me out. So it's also letting young men know and my boys know that you need to have community, you need to have friends, you need to have people that you can trust because we are not designed to survive alone. It's just not how we are. We're social animals, and alone challenges that mental game and that physical game. But let's take that and let's overlay that over the real world. Like you need friends. You need people that you can trust in, and rely on. More importantly, forming, a tight knit bond and a little clan of like minded people.
Because that leads me perfectly on to because you teach a lot of self-reliance, but if you're ill and shitting your guts out, pardon my French, you
Yeah,
get
no,
to that
no.
point of if you can't go out and hunt food and water and get the plants you need, you're ill and you could potentially die, and like a lot of
Yeah,
people back in yesteryear would have done. What did that
yeah.
teach? Is that something that you use as a story almost to teach your clients and your people that you work with to say you do need to rely on people, the importance of having that tribe and that support?
Absolutely. And the best part is, I don't think there's anybody that who hasn't signed up for a course who hasn't or witnessed that sort of thing, and they love to ask questions about it. But I always say that is a truth. Like you will get sick. You're not in the most sanitized and cleanliest, places. You will get sick. But this also it shows you that sometimes help in any way that it comes, whether it's in the normal world, the civilian world, the business world, the online, whatever world. Sometimes you need help. Ask for it. Ask for it. With all the experience that I have in the bush, I still had a radio and I was able to ask for help. So don't take on everything by yourself. Ask for help. And there was this British SAS guy who was working on that season of Alone, and his name is Kieran. And Kieran and I really, connected. He was, military. I was military. And soon as I, had tapped and he was going out there, he was going to pull me out. I think they sent him out there specifically because he had that military background. And, as I tapped and the cameras were, pulling me out and like we kind of did our little send off and we were flying out on the boat, he kind of looked at me and just said, in this hard, I would say like South London accent, like, look, you tosser, you've had worse days than this. No one's shooting at you. This is just one. He just laid it all out for me. Pick your chin up. You'll be fine. And I was like, you're right, Kieran. He was just one of those guys that I needed at that time to be like, look, dude, you've done way harder things than this. This is a TV show. Get over it, move on. And he just brought me back to that reality real quick where it's like, you've had harder days. you'll be fine. Move forward. And I think I've taken a little golden nugget from him at times with some of my clients after they've gone through a training and they've, reached back out to me and said, you know what, man, I want to do another one. I just felt good. I felt alive, having a rough time at work. And I try to paint that same sort of scenario. Like, look, that can be a hard day. You're going to have more hard days, but you just got to keep going forward. Move past it. It's not the end of the world. Suck it up, move forward.
I love that. I
It's
love that.
true.
That even though you've done these amazing things, that you know the importance of having a friend, having a backup, because
Yeah.
it's not the only time you've come close to death. Uh,
No.
you know, like that time in Utah when you almost
Yeah.
dehydrated and things like that. But you just
Yes.
went, oh well, I just knew I needed some extra water. There wasn't that
Uh,
like your brain immediately goes, what was the lesson from it? Brilliant. Let's change that.
That's it. What can you do? Like, what's the resilient steps you can do to like not make those same mistakes and just overcome it? And it's funny because with my buddy Neil, who sent me out in that time to almost die, we joke about it now. But he's one of those guys that's in my circle. We go to his place, he comes to my place. Like he's in that circle where we can joke about it. And I think that's the other good thing that men need is like with that kind of brotherhood. Um, when there is that bit of adversity, once it's done and it's over, joke about it. You know what I mean? If it still eats you alive, let it go. You got to find ways to let it go. And, it's never to, just totally overlook it. Use it when it has its place, but don't let it run your day to day. So, yeah, I mean, I got all these little marks on my foot that I've tattooed of like my real close brushes with death from like time in the Middle East to time in the bush. They're just fun little reminders.
And so when you are on your own or you're in a cave or whatever and you're looking at these things, how do you use them as a way of your progression, your evolution, the part of the military Donny that had to die to become the prehistoric Donny to the working with films Donny, all these kind of different
Yeah.
identities. But you use
Yeah.
these as a way of journaling on your own body. How do you use them to understand how you live and what you want? Because I think you have a motto that life is long. How do you
Life is long.
incorporate
Yeah.
that?
I think my life is long and just all my tattoos. Um, it's a mental sort of kind of way of kind of approaching the world. So many people think life is short. I got to hurry up and do this and hurry up and do this, or I'm going to miss this. It's that fear of missing out, the FOMO. And I think my heart attack made me realize that life is long. And if we're in a hurry to rush through it, then we're going to miss out on a lot of beautiful things. That's relationships, that's experiences, adventures, and new opportunities. Don't be in a rush. So once you can shape your kind of mental game that life is long, enjoy it, take your time, do what feels right, do what feels good. You're going to be great going forward. And my tattoos are just reminders that sometimes they're on my hands, they're on my feet, my legs. When that kind of modern world starts to rush me a little bit, I can like just kind of sit back and be like, oh, that's why that's there. Slow it down, bring it in a little bit. Or, you know, when my wife and I traveled to South America last year and we were working with some like indigenous folks, re-showing them stone tools, how to make them and how to shape them because they'd kind of lost that in about 2 generations. I got sick. We ate some like bad piranha and some bad water, and I got sick for about 24 hours. Was throwing up, and she's really good into medicinal plants. And I was just like, all right, I'm just going to be sick. Eventually, this will pass through my body, but like I'll be okay. And as I was looking at like some of my tattoos and what they represent, I was like, okay, you'll be fine. You're not going to die. And if you do die, you had a good life. But I know you're not going to die. Therefore, embrace the suck, get it out of your system, and move on. And I think those sort of like reminders on my body, because they all mean something. Some of them are fun stories. Some of them are, like, what were you thinking? Some of them are, hey, you almost died, or just remember where you come from. It's like having your own story kind of on your body. And I think a lot of people like to take their tattoos, heavily tattooed people like myself with my chest and my back and my legs, they want to like cover them up. They want to safeguard them because that's their art form. Mine is the complete opposite. I want them scarred. I want them burnt. I want them faded. I want them exposed to the world because I believe that's how like our ancient ancestors one of the reasons they would tattoo was to tell stories, to remember different things, and more importantly, to display to people that like this person has something to share if you're willing to listen. So a couple of years ago, I was in Inked magazine, and they asked me about like all my tattoos, and I kind of broke some of them down. But I said the one thing that you will never find on my body is a tattoo that doesn't have a scar, has not been cut or scraped or ripped open because I've been walking through the bush or I've fallen down a ravine or whatever. And I'm like, that's how I want them to kind of be displayed to the world. Not just a beautiful piece of art, but a story of little bits of who I am. And if you're curious, I'll tell you about that story if you ask about them.
And is there one that's kind of the story that's most impactful to you? Is there one that you get most excited when somebody says, "What's that?" or "What's this?"
Yeah, I mean, so on my back, well, let's think. God, there's so many. I think these ones right here. This is actually from your neck to the woods. This is a Pictish symbol,
Yep.
and the Picts are, you know this. Um, they were just this unruly group of people that lived in the Highlands and different portions of Scotland. And anyone that doesn't know anything about the Picts, just go and read about them. They're pretty amazing. But this symbol is unknown. They have a lot of symbols that are etched in stone, and the true meaning on what they are isn't known. And I think for me, I fell in love with this symbol when I was learning into a place called Berghead, Scotland, where I have a large amount of family that lives fort there. And I was curious about who this group of people were. More importantly, they kind of come from where my family originated from and started spreading throughout the world. And I always wanted a piece of me to connect to something that was just beyond, I was born in Michigan and, this, that, and the other. I just wanted a little bit of connection outward. So I saw this and I was like, what does that mean? And nobody knows what it means. But it also means a couple different things to me and the symbolism that I knew before. So when I look at this is the crescent moon and this is the broken arrow. And some of my time in the Middle East, I quickly learned that a crescent moon will give you direction, meaning that if you're in the northern hemisphere and you see a crescent moon and you draw a line from this tip of the crescent to the next tip of the crescent down to the horizon, and you're in the northern hemisphere, that will give you a cardinal direction of south. And it's reversed if you're in the southern hemisphere. And I was always fascinated by that. And anytime there was a crescent moon, I was always looking up at the sky trying to figure out like those. It just gave me something, a familiarity and a comfort. And then the broken arrow, sometimes referred to as the bent rod, it was very symbolic to me because to me it means if you're afraid to take a shot, let's say archery, if you're afraid to take a shot and to try to put that arrow on target and you're cautious and you're apprehensive, even before you pull your arrow out of the quiver, your arrow's broken. You can't be afraid to take a shot. And if you are, your arrow is already broken. And I think those two pieces, the moon and the broken arrow in opposition, one of direction and the other one of reminder of broken shots and not taking chances, is something I should have on my hands because my hands are my tools and everything that I do. It gave a little bit of kind of like family tie, not necessarily to claim, but to remember a certain connection of where a lot of your blood comes from and what you're doing with it forward. But always have a good direction and don't be afraid to take shots and remember who your family are. And then put that on the tools of your trade, which are my hands. So a lot of people ask about it. There's most people from Scotland, ironically, they're like, I've seen that before. I've seen it,
I was
at
going to
this
ask.
stone. Yeah, they've seen it at this stone circle and they've seen it here. And they're like, well, how do you know about that? And it's like, well, it's just something that like I saw, but like it fit examples of things that were important to me. Always having direction, not being afraid to take shots. And being that it didn't have a true meaning, I was able to take it and kind of adapt it into what it means for me. And more importantly, where I put it on my hands and what my hands do for me. Because everything I do, I'm always making, I'm doing them. These are my tools. And I think like it just represents a whole lot of, you know, my family in the sense of like, know where you come from, to taking shots, having a clear cut direction, and know that like you are your best tool. You are your own best tool for creating everything that you want. Rely on yourself. So that's kind of like my hand tattoos. And there's tons of other ones, but they're all kind of stories. I have some on my back that are from my time in Iceland. Some of the ones on my legs represent different paths, family members, the alignment of my mental, physical, emotional, primal well-being, life's journey, like chevrons pointing forward in a forward direction, then chevrons pointing at me to like, don't forget who you are, where you are, what you come from, focus on you. I have giant chess pieces, and sometimes they're interesting stories. And I think like the tattoo culture nowadays is far more accepting having hand tattoos. But yeah, I like them. I like them. They are faded and scarred and just gnarly in every way, but life
I,
is
lo-
long, right?
I love that. I love that you can tell a story through your own body. Because I've
Yeah.
got keloid scarring, so I'm not allowed to get tattoos, and it's always been a big regret because there's so many little things
Yeah.
I wanted like to ink in part of my history. And when I see these
Yeah.
people getting silly ones for bets and stuff like that, do you
Yeah.
think that kind of links into we no longer tell stories? You no longer know the story of your father. You know that he was maybe a hard ass or liked to drink or whatever, but you don't know what made him excited or what made him scared or whatever. That we no longer have these sitting around the fire with the tribe because 10 million
Yes.
people watched you chip a stone, when you're making like arrowheads and all these sort of things. Do you think we're
Yeah.
watching that to have that kind of quieter time, that kind of just talk around the community, that like what were they looking at as much as the skill you were teaching?
I think people, yeah, it's an interesting question because I think people have this natural curiosity about the world around them and what people can show them and demonstrate. And I think, for me, I'm showing a skill that has been one of our longest and most traditional skills really since the dawn of time. But I think people sometimes they want that little bit of story. They don't sit around the fire anymore. Everything is consumed so quickly and then it's expelled even quicker. You know what I mean? Like how many times people can scroll and scroll and scroll. They'll see something and then it's gone. They might not even remember it. And I think my tattoos have a story. More importantly, the stone tools that I make a story as well. It's a story of cultures past. It's a story of what I do with them today. And I think for some folks, they wish they had that. They might not know where they come from. And I say stone tools are part of the human culture. Every culture has used stone tools. That's the one thing that really truly connects us all.
Mhm.
And yes, we can go into the woods with a steel knife and do things just as quickly. But if you go with stone, you got to slow it down because life is long. You got the time. Take your time. I do find that people they want something to hold on to that they could maybe hand down to their kids. And they might not realize that when they're 18, 19, 20 years old. But once you get around 30, maybe 35, you're like, what do I have to give my kids? What do I have to show them and maybe future generations? And I think for me, I chose after my heart attack to start writing stories in the event that one day I know I will die, which is 100% guaranteed. What can the generations that come after me, what can they know about their grandfather, their great grandfather, their great 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 grandfather? And I need to take that responsibility as a man to make sure that that stuff is there. So that's why I've written books. That's why I've decided to put things online so that my 4 month old right now, who's in diapers, maybe when he's 12 or 13 or 14 at the appropriate age to maybe start viewing these things online, can see that's his dad from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever the case. Read my books maybe to his kids when he's 35 or 40. That legacy can ultimately continue. Like when I went to Scotland this past December with my wife, we went to my aunt's house, and she has kept the family lineage the whole way and knows like what of certain families went to the States, which ones stayed in Scotland, which ones went to Ireland. But one of the things that I was able to do is they were able to communicate with me. One of like my great uncles died in a shipwreck in Galway, Ireland. Well, we
Okay.
were able to go to Galway and see the shrine. Like it's those sort of things that I think some generations are losing because maybe they don't have an interest, but like I find that very important to be like, this is who you are family wise, this is who you are generational wise, and like you should know this. Like this is a very proud thing. And like I know that my on my wife's side, she has her family, genealogy laid out, and that's really important for people because it helps give them not necessarily an identity, but it might give them something to hold in the back. Because I mean, like I'm an American, I have family that's in Scotland, but I'm not like I'm a Scottish American. Like there are connection points there. That's not something like I'm returning home. Like no, I've never lived. I was born in Detroit, Michigan. Like that's not my home, but it is a connection to a portion of my family that I've maintained communication with and that I want to talk with. And I want to make sure that my sons also know that same sort of history as well. And I think some folks, they just kind of they just give up on it. And they're like, well, this is who we are. This is what we do. And so be it. But there's more to who you are than just what you see in the present. Like, I don't know. It's that sort of history has always just been fascinating to me. And I think like more parents, uncles, aunts should write their stories. It shouldn't just be an Instagram post because one day that's all going to go away. And I told this to my boys very early on before I was on social. I'm like, I'm writing this book. I'm dedicating this book to you. So one day you'll just have a piece of my story that you can share with your sons, your daughters, whatever the case may be. Because one day all of this technology will go away. It's going to go for a blackout, hopefully, fingers crossed, but that book will remain. That story will remain. And all you have to do is read it once, remember some of it. You've lived the experience and you can share with those that you want. Not to not to become famous or anything like that, just to share it with your loved ones so they know a little bit about who their grandfather was, their great grandfather, so on and so forth. That's
Do you
all.
think that's like why a big part of the audience love your work is that you're letting them kind of learn about the past, but they're missing. That's where depression, anxiety, burnout, a lot of this
Yeah.
comes from. It's not knowing our past, so we can't really understand our present and our future.
I think that's a very accurate way. It's a very smart way of putting it. I think that's 100% true. Um, Sometimes what I portray, but I think my success with some of the audience is that I don't ask anything of them. I'm not asking them to like, subscribe to this or to do this or go to my online. I mean, I do have those options, but I'm not making anybody feel that if they want to be part of this little online tribe, they have to do something. You just got to sit and watch it. And if you don't want to, scroll away. My feelings aren't going to get hurt. More importantly, I engage with that community. From very early on in the online world, I made it a choice that if somebody watches your video and says, "Hey man, great video," you I should say thank you. That's how my parents raised me.
Yeah.
But there's so many of these influencers and content creators and actors and all these people that just expect it. And I'm like, it'd be funny if you take some of these real famous people and if their audience decided not to like their posts or not to go to their movies or to subscribe to their channel, what would happen? They would crash and burn. For me, I don't look at that as that's just what they're supposed to do. I look at it as they gave me a minute of their time. I should be able to reach back out to them and say, "Hey man, I appreciate you watching. Thanks." I can't get to everybody because that would be my my total life would be replying to comments, but I should show up. I should show up long enough for those that are there early or maybe a day into it. Hey, I appreciate you watching. Hey, man, could you make this? Absolutely. I'll give it a try. That lets them know that this guy they'll probably never meet cares enough just to reply to them. And I can't tell you how many people have been like, you know what? I've been on this app for 3 years. or I've been watching YouTube for 10 years. I've never had somebody reply to me and I'm saying, hey, I'm sorry, but I'm not like these other fools. I appreciate you watching my video. Thank you. And I think that's the sort of thing that I really provide is a sense of community that's no expectations. Just I'm just giving you something to watch. And if you find a piece of curiosity in it, man, maybe I want to try making stone tools or I want to try and do a fire. Cool. You should go and do it. You absolutely have the full capability to experiment and try those things on your own. It's
Because
it's
that,
the easiest source of delivery in the world. You know what I mean?
I mean, you did that video recently with Hugh Jackman, making arrowheads, and
Yeah.
I remember watching that. And here's a guy with millions of followers, millions of dollars in the bank, and he's feeling most alive. You could see how much he lit up by
Yeah.
creating something with his hands and stuff like that. What did that teach you then about what's important in life? Because you can only carry so much in your backpack.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
has all this taught you about what's essential?
I think if you go to like the physical sense, I always say it's easier to know more than carry less. The more you know, the less you can carry. And the natural world can, provide it. But I think in like the form of like just my chances of coming across Hugh Jackman and like the normal world is probably zero. But like that movie, that production company, him, they sought me out because of what I do. It's interesting. And I think they saw that value and it's like, this guy kind of ties into our movie. Let's see if he can bring this back into like Hugh Jackman to maybe to fire him. Um, but it was a pretty good experience. And I don't know. I think he's a great actor. I think he's a very nice and very humble human being. But I think for me, I see him as just a man like anybody else. He's successful because he chose to do it his way. He didn't backstab people. Just like anybody you come across, they're going to have their different successes. So for me, I presented my skill set. I got to watch his skill set on the screen, and he was able to kind of reconnect in maybe this something he experienced. And don't get me wrong, we saw 2 minutes and 30 seconds of a longer portion of the day where we were kind of BSing and sharing stories, but
Hmm.
he's just like anybody else. He wanted to make some arrow points. He was talking about his son and him wanting to do this with his son, and that's perfect, man. That's all I got to do is influence one people in a positive way to say, you know what, we might not be do this professionally, but we might see if we can share this with my kids. You know what, I'm going to bring my kids hiking and remember to pack these things so we don't get hung out in the woods. That's really what it comes down to. I just think most of the people most of the things I do online, I just try to create a level of authenticity where like you don't have to do what I do to be happy. Just if you're curious, hey, I'll be an example. This is how you make this. This is how you make this. Some of them are super far fetched. Some of them are more, you know, accurate into what you might actually need. Some of them are not. And then different people see the value in that. And don't get me wrong, like those those production companies and they reach out to me because I have a lot of followers. But I will say, like, I started with one follower as well, but I think I just stuck to who I
Hmm.
was, and that came across in the screen. I engaged with an audience. I valued who they were because I didn't get to 10 million followers on TikTok because I closed myself off. I'm a 46-year-old guy that made stone tools in his workshop. Nobody had to follow me. They did it because there was some curiosity there. There's a little bit of storytelling. There was simplicity. There wasn't a lot of craziness. It was just this dude doing what he loves. And you could see that in the screen. More importantly, he was willing to respond when you asked a question or when you had an idea for a future build.
I love that. And Hugh is definitely one of those people I want to have on the show. Like he's a bucket list guest for who he
He's
is as a
awesome.
person. So it's great to hear he's like that off camera as much as on. And
Yeah.
something I was really intrigued about though was like your partner sounds a godsend. Like I can't imagine anybody else that says I've had a heart attack, I'm off to live in a cave, and they went, yeah, okay. You went off. I'm off to live in the Arctic. I'm off to do
Yeah.
these things. I'm off to into the bush. You probably won't be able to hear from me because I might die. All these kind of things.
Yeah.
what has that taught you about relationships, about your finding your person? And for a very single person like myself, what's it taught
Yeah.
you about finding your tribe, your person?
I think the one thing it's taught me is they're out there. And with them being out there, it might take a little time to find them, but you should also find that person that just makes you better in the form of like, my wife does not let me get away with shit. She's probably, 115 pounds, 110 pounds soaking wet. She's shorter than me, just a cute, petite little woman, but she is a spitfire. And I think that's kind of one of those things that uh, I need. She just puts me in check. She's not afraid to call my BS. But with all of that, she always just makes me better. She tells me that she's proud of me. When I do something and I make some money, she appreciates it. She says, "Thank you. Thank you so much for supporting us." And she generally makes me feel good about what I'm doing, but she'll also let me know like, you know, let's do this. Like she's just a good partner. It's hard to describe it certain ways, but like somebody that makes you better in multiple ways is a good person. But she doesn't do it in a way where she makes me feel bad. You know what I mean? She won't be like, "Well, you could be doing this a lot better." She'll never say that. What she'll do is she plays into like my manness sometimes. Like sometimes, if this sounds so silly, but like if I'm carrying something like heavy, she'll look at me and be like, "Oh, you're so strong." And then all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh, I'll carry more. I'll do more." She just gives me those little things that just makes me feel better. And that's the sort of person I think does exist for everybody out there. Somebody that just makes you feel better. More importantly, they're kind to you, respectful, and she's a great communicator. Communication's key, especially for men. We, like my generation, we weren't brought up to be the best communicators, but she has taught me how to be a better communicator, to be aware of my emotions, to not squash everything and hold it inside, to talk about things, which has ultimately allowed me to be better towards my sons and how to communicate with them. She's just a rock star. She really is. She likes to go on the adventures with me. Sometimes, I have to be like, "You can't go on this one because I got to do X, Y, and Z." But yeah, she's a great mom. She really is. She's like the best mom. Outstanding. I love
I,
her.
lo- I
Yeah.
love how you light up when you talk about her. It's like you can see the true passions, like
Yeah.
your kids, your partner, and then it's your tools and things like that. So if you
Yeah,
did
she's
have,
great.
say, like a fat, out of shape podcast host who came to you, and he's got depression, he's burnt out, he's
Yeah.
anxious, whatever it is, how would you start going? Okay, we need to, to talk about your story. We need to get you to do these like ritualistic things we did back then to find who you are in the past to the future. All these kind of things. What could we
Yeah.
start doing today? Any man to find more of themselves to get that capability back.
Yeah. I think there's a couple things. Um, First things first, I think you need to go outside, and you can't wait for the best day to go outside. Go out in the worst weather. Start building your ground truth into those sort of experiences. And that's going for hikes. It's experiencing, picking up a plant book and learning the local flora in an area. Just getting outside and being active outside, whether it's for 10 minutes, 30 minutes, or an entire day. The natural world just has that way of healing. And I know that's very cliche and a lot of people tell you that, but like it's real. It's 100% true. And once you're outside, take off your shoes, walk barefoot, go swim in the ocean, go do things because that's what you feel is right instinctively, and don't worry about what anybody else is is looking or saying or doing. Just go do it because you want to do it. Nature, it's a great way to heal. Two, you have nephews, you have, daughters, sons, brothers, sisters. Start writing your story. And I'm not talking about journaling. I'm not saying today I did this. Start writing your story. And don't be afraid to go back and read your story. Read your story in the sense of like I want this to be honest to those who come after me. I recommend to everybody start writing your story, even if it's small chapters of your story, start writing it because people can learn from it. People can experience who you are, whether they know you or whether they don't know you. But like those that do know you, it will give them a different sort of insight. You don't have to publish it. You can just write it and put it in a cool book and set up on the shelf, and it's there. And when they want to read it, they can read it. Start writing it down, sharing those successes and failures, because at some point, somebody might be in a similar spot. And if one person, just one person, can learn from your mistakes, gain an aspect of who you are, that could change their life. It can be very impactful and shape their days going forward, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally, or primally. Start writing your story. And more importantly, I say story in the sense of like, just write, just write stuff down. Don't journal. This is what I did today. Just write. What do you feel like? What do you want to write? And if it's your story, that's the best story that there is. And number three is like, it's just going back to like the value. Who brings you value? What is your tribe, your clan, your group? Who brings that to you? Acknowledge them, appreciate them, and just cut out the rest. That is the biggest thing. Like a man, a woman, a young man, young woman should do is just surround yourself with that tribe that keeps you focused, that brings you value, loves you, supports you, but's not afraid to help you when you might need help. Not to ridicule you, not to, you know, mock you because you failed, but to say, look, dude, sometimes we fuck up. That's just how this works. But this is what we're going to do to move forward. Find those people, and sometimes you might think you already have them in your mind, but then those people that are maybe are around you, you already know if they're there because they want to be there because they have to be there. Just find those people that support you. And sometimes it's making new friends, making new kind of colleagues, whatever that case may be. That's important. Yeah. So get outside, find your tribe, start writing your story, man. I would love to say like going to the gym 10 times a month is a good thing or walking 100 miles is a thing. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but those are three things. One is art, one is connection to the natural world, and one is a connection to a positive sort of influence in your life. Those will be good. I don't care if somebody wants to drink a beer, if they want to smoke a cigarette, I don't care. That is their choices. They already know what right and wrong is. They know what the positive, like, I'm not here to do that, but like, natural world, share your story and find your tribe. Worked for me.
Oh, and that's
It'll
a
work for
hell of a
anybody else.
beautiful answer. And
Right on, man.
you have mentioned about passing on the story to people, and that kind of part of it. What do you want people to know of your story? Because you're going to be that type of person. People go, "This is the guy to follow. This is you have to follow him. You have to go and work with him, etc." But what do you
Yeah.
want out of this when you look back now? Is it somebody that your sons respect? Is it somebody that live life following your own values? How do you encompass it all into Donny the man?
Yeah. I think the biggest reward is that my sons know that their father loved them, and he was and is who he says he is. He's not anybody else. He's not here to portray any sort of image that isn't who he is. He has just lived in his most authentic self, and we're happy to call him, father, call me dad. you know, I just want my kids to think I'm cool. I think that's really what it is.
I think they will.
But I think they, but I want them to think I'm cool because like I'm a good dad. I showed up. I cared for them. I love them. Held them to a standard. I didn't give them everything. I made them work for stuff, and that hopefully shapes who they are as young men moving forward, who they are as husbands moving forward, and how I treat my wife. They know what a man should be doing for his wife. 'Cause there's a lot of bad examples out there, but there's good ones. You know what I mean? And sometimes You only see what's online, but like the flesh in that ground truth is really where they see the examples, and I think they know how to treat their significant other when the time comes.
And is there
Yeah,
sorry.
no, that was it. Like if nobody else says anything, or is that's Donnie. I just, as long as my boys and my wife know those to be my truths and what I hope are, then I can die a happy man.
Because one of the things I used to always ask was when I first started was what made a next level guy? What made somebody living life on the next level? And for a lot of this, it comes across from you as authentic, happy, following
Yeah.
your own path. Would that is that how you describe an next level guy?
Yeah, I think the next level, yeah, without a doubt, being authentic, following your own path, having your own self-confidence and resilience to adapt and overcome. And I think for anybody listening, it's the easiest thing to be. It is the easiest thing to be. Like to be you, who you are, what you love, what you want to experience. It's super easy. You don't have to live to any makes or models. Just be you and be who you want to be and go do it. That's the next level guy.
I love that. I mean, it literally feels like 10 minutes. So I know it's been I've used up far too much of your time, so I have to have you back
That's
on,
all
and
right.
we could really go into
Yeah,
deep into
absolutely,
different
man.
things and prehistoric tools and flint making, etc. But
Yeah.
for people who've listened this, and I hope it's changing lives, what would you want them
Yes,
to
sir.
remember from this? How would you sum this up into a kind of a message, or what would you want people to come to you and say, I listened to you on that show and I did XYZ or whatever it is? What would you want people to take from it?
I think if anybody was to come to me and say, "Hey, listen to you on the next level guy," my biggest takeaway is you are who you say you are. And more importantly, that is the easiest thing to be. So I'm now taking that as my kind of mantra into life and be like, whether I love gaming, I love art, I love fishing, I love F1, and I want to pursue things into it. That's what I want to be. That's what I want to do. I'm going to do it regardless of what anybody else tells me. Like that is my authentic me. So thank you for that because it can work. It is real. I play with rocks every day. It can work. Trust me. So whatever it is, go with it. I got your back.
And how can we follow this journey? Because you go from strength to strength. You're using the past to create a better future for everybody. You're changing lives. How can we follow on? How can we read the books? How can we, come and work with you?
Yeah.
Go and almost die out at the try, like all these kind of things. How can we find
Yeah.
ourselves to be more like you?
Yeah. I think the easiest way for people to kind of follow and stay abreast of what's going on is I just have a website, donnydust.com. That's where I post courses and different offerings and teachings, and just everything is kind of like the central hub there. And anywhere on social media is Donny Dust, at TikTok, Instagram, all that sort of stuff. But I will say there's one caveat to that. So I have a lot of online presence, but people, you're getting about 15 to 20% of Donnie. Just remember that. Like there's a whole other 80% of me that I will not share with anybody because that's my life. And I want to keep a certain portion of it for
Mm.
my sons, for my wife, for my family. That's what makes this very easy for me to manage. What you see on the online, that 15, that 20% is authentic to my real life, but I don't put everything out there. You can't. And I think you should realize that with a lot of people that are on social media, how much of their life is on online and how much of their real life is offline. Because the majority of my life is offline with my wife, with my kids, on the adventures we go on and the things that we do together. I don't share it all because that's for us. I will share a certain
Mm.
portion. And more importantly, that portion is, I think, it's kind of fantasized and romanticized because it's exciting. But there's days I take out the trash. There's days where I got to pick up dog poop. There's days where I got to wait at an airport because a flight's delayed. I'm just like everybody else. I'm just like everybody else with the same sort of trials and tribulations and success and failures. The stuff I share is a very small portion of my reality. So know that to be 100% true. Like, I love sharing it, but it's just a small bit. The rest is for me to keep and keep safeguarded for my loved ones and for my family.
Well, that's it for another week, and thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.